As always, thanks for joining us. Well, businesses are moving out of Pennsylvania. The president of the Pennsylvania Chamber explains why. But first, local government is at the core of our lives. Why is the big question. We'll get to that and more after these words.
Welcome to the fast-paced and unrehearsed weekly discussion featuring the leaders who help shape your world. Join us as we address the issues that impact you each and every day. This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Well, we have the mayor of Lancaster, Danene Sorace, joining me. We're going to chat about city life, urban life, but city life, local government, to put it another way. Mayor, thanks for joining.
I'm so glad to be here with you, Terry. It's been a minute.
Yeah, it has been a minute. Well, let's start with something. When I said local government is at the core of our lives, I'll get to specific questions in a minute, but think about it. Police, fire, schools, just about everything, housing that's relevant in our lives is governed, I'll put that in quotes, by local government. Am I right or wrong about that?
You are correct, and it is it's an honor to be able to serve in this way as mayor, because I think that the mayors have the best job and also the hardest job, but we actually get to decide things and make things happen to the benefit of our residents every day.
Yeah. Well, one of the biggest challenges has to be policing in, in not just urban communities, but in local governments per se. But a lot of attention gets paid to the smaller cities, whether we're talking about Lancaster or York or Harrisburg or Lebanon.
Mm-hmm. Well, I really appreciate the work that our police officers do every day. It's a really tough job that they have. I think our number one challenge, and if you talk to any mayor across America, they'll tell you that recruiting is really challenging right now. We have a lot of retirements that are happening, just a wave that happened when we hired a lot of folks in the mid-90s. Those folks have been serving for 25 years now, and they're heading out to enjoy their retirement. Yeah. And so we're just not seeing the class of new interest, new officers coming in. So that's our biggest challenge.
And it's in the press, I mean, because of the violence, because of the shootings. I mean, it literally dominates the local news in many cases.
Well, I just want to say that may dominate the local news in other communities, but it doesn't dominate the news in Lancaster. And I also, am very aware of the importance of public safety as it relates to all of the things that matter. If you can't get safety, have public safety in your city, you're not going to be successful in economic development and all the other things that go with living in an urban community.
Yeah. Is the trust and confidence in the local police pretty strong these days in Lancaster?
I think it is, yes. And we have a new chief of police. His name is Rick Mendez. He grew up in the city, graduated from McCaskey High School. He is our first Hispanic police chief in a city that is majority Hispanic. We have about 40% of our city that hails from a Spanish-speaking country, many of which are from Puerto Rico. And so for me, that matters a lot.
Let's talk a little bit about housing. I mean, much is made of historic districts and dedicating them, promoting them. But housing is relevant to so many people with widely varying incomes.
Yes, and it's why we have in the pipeline right now more than 2,200 residential units. We're working very hard to get our first new affordable housing units off the ground on College Avenue. That was part of the former UPMC hospital site. So we're very excited, and we're being very bullish on housing opportunities. We need housing at every price point. We absolutely need more affordable housing. And fortunately, because of the American Rescue Plan Act funds and the work of the Biden administration, we've been able to put $10 million into protecting and preserving existing affordable housing and producing new housing. And that's something that we're really proud of.
And that must be a challenge, given the fact that you have a lot of low-income families who live in the city. Finding affordable housing has to be a serious challenge.
Yes, but also I'm hearing from the school district of Lancaster that teaching staff are having a hard time finding housing. Our police officers, firefighters, it's expensive to buy a new house. Obviously, interest rates are helping right at this moment. There's a lot of new rentals coming on the market because people are are wanting to live in a rental because they want to kind of ride out the interest rate environment at this moment.
All right, how you govern is extremely important, and what mechanisms you have to govern is important. We're going to run to a break, and we come back to talk about that and more after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business, and by the Pennsylvania State Education Association, bringing the power of a great education to our schools, our students, and our communities. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Please visit pahighwayinfo.org. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
My guest is Danene Sorace. She's the mayor of the city of Lancaster. We're talking about a variety of subjects that deal with local government. All right, Mayor, let's talk about budgets. Local governments often complain that they don't have a lot of latitude when it comes that state government has laws and rules and regulations that govern too closely, too completely, and that you need more flexibility.
And they're too old.
And they're too old. Good point.
You know, we're being governed by a law that was passed in 1965, you know, before I was born. And that law does not meet our needs. 60% of our budget is for public safety, and our budget increases, you know, 3 to 4% a year. And our tax base, our property tax base is level. And so we need to have some more flexibility to be able to keep our
How do you get that flexibility?
Well, unfortunately, the way that most cities in Pennsylvania do it is they go through Act 47. They actually fall flat on their face and, you know, go through municipal bankruptcy. I'm pleased to see
That's
more.
no way to do it.
That is no way to do it. I'm pleased to see more cities coming out of Act 47 now, but Lancaster doesn't want to go into Act 47, and so the way that we are proceeding is I introduced an ordinance to establish a home rule study commission. Council passed it. It went to the voters, passed by a wide margin in the spring, and the home rule study commission has been established, and they are looking at our form of government and going to be making some recommendations probably early next year.
So home rule is a way to give you more flexibility in terms of how local government functions.
But only in with the existing taxes that we already have. There's no new taxes.
No new taxes.
No new taxes. So this is flexible.
Think the voters are smiling as you say that?
Well, yeah, I mean, but you know, this is really about creating a level playing field, and I know it's tough to have a conversation about taxes in Pennsylvania or literally anywhere. But we can't keep burdening our property owners with ever-increasing property taxes to pay for public safety. And the good side of this, if there is a good side, is that the earned income tax is pegged to your income. And when you retire, you don't pay earned income tax. And that's very important for our seniors that live in the city of Lancaster, that they can afford to continue to live in their homes.
Government, like a lot of businesses, needs a plan, a functioning plan, in order to know how to govern and how to provide all these services. And you are working on, or you have completed, you're going to explain that to our viewers, what you've referred to as a comprehensive plan. Take it.
Yeah, so it's actually a requirement by the state that our cities have comprehensive plans. We haven't had one since 1993. And so we've had other plans, economic development plans, a strategic plan, but not a comprehensive plan that really focuses on how we're using our land, what the residents want in terms of priorities. We spent probably the better part of 2 years talking to about 14,000 people to get their feedback about what they were envisioning for the city of Lancaster. And so we have some really bold plans that are coming through this process, and we're really excited, specifically on the economic development front. as well as a renewed look at Sunnyside Peninsula, which has been a conversation in the city of Lancaster for probably 100 years, and has
Now,
just
Sunnyside's an area.
an area.
Go ahead, explain
yes.
that.
Well, Sunnyside is a part of the city that back 100+ years ago was like a Mount Gretna, if you're going to compare it. There were little cottages along the water.
Yeah.
It was a place that families went to on the weekends. There was a trolley, a train line that went to this area. And obviously, with the advent of the car, people started going to the Jersey Shore and all of that. And so it's been an area that the city actually owns 70 acres there. We've had lots of proposals for housing and so on, but there's also been this little quarry that's been there for a long time. And you know, when you have a quarry, there's a lot of rock, and so it's been very, very difficult to really develop that into anything other than what we're thinking about it now, which is a preserve and an environmental center and a way to connect to nature.
Well, look, I want the best to you. I want to thank you for coming on the program. All right, coming up, our business is moving out of Pennsylvania, and what can be done about that after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by
Cross-State Credit Union Association. Credit unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, visit crossstate.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Association of Pennsylvania State College and University Faculties, representing the faculty and coaches who are devoted to providing quality public higher education for Pennsylvania's college students.
Welcome back. Well, the economy is the #1 issue confronting the United States and Pennsylvania in the polling that gets done. Joining me to talk about that and what needs to improve in terms of the economy is Luke Bernstein. He's the president and CEO of the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry. Luke, thanks for coming back on the program.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, let's first of all talk about the economy. You believe, for example, that businesses are moving out of the state of Pennsylvania, correct?
Yeah, that's a fact. So statistically, more businesses are moving out of Pennsylvania, and especially in comparison to other states. And we need to do a better job in being more competitive here so we can keep businesses here, which means we can keep jobs here and keep growing and grow our economy.
Yeah. Well, overall, are you optimistic or pessimistic about the future of our state economically?
I'm very optimistic because the things that are holding us back are the things that we can change and the things that we can control. The things that we can't control are all great factors. We have a world-class educational system. We have world-class healthcare facilities here in Pennsylvania. We are proximity to the open rest of the world, the eastern seaboard, an entire nation's drive, 2/3 of the nation's population in a one-day drive. All those things, energy, healthcare, the things you can't change and most states would die for, resources, water, we have them. The things that we need to change are within our control. Our tax structure is uncompetitive. Our permitting process has been uncompetitive. And our workforce, we can put together a comprehensive strategy, which we have, to address our workforce challenges and move our state forward. So to your question, I am optimistic because the things that we can control are within our ability to control them and be more competitive.
Yeah, we got to go through big change from the big industries that dominated our economy. Coal, iron, steel for, less than 100 years, but in the late 19th century up until more recent times. I mean, we are literally talking about huge changes that have taken place in our state.
Yeah, you've seen changes across the board, and I think the great part about Pennsylvania is through innovation and change, energy continues to be a driving force in the Pennsylvania economy. We are the second largest producer of natural gas in the country. We're the largest exporter of electricity in this state. So we are positioned, and it's not just in those types of energy, it's all across the board. So energy economy is really important. If you ask businesses, some of the things that they're looking for, they want a low cost of energy. Water is important, site selection, those things. We have the ability to do that here in Pennsylvania.
Well, let's talk about a couple of things that you that you have mentioned and brought up in talks that you've given in other places, and that is the corporate net income tax, and you think it needs to be reduced. First of all, what's the corporate net income tax?
The current corporate net income tax in Pennsylvania is 8.99. Last year it was 9.99. January 1st, 2024, it will be reduced again to 8.49. This is important because we ranked last year 49th out of 50th with the second highest corporate net income tax rate in the country. If you're a business and you're making a decision, should I move to Ohio, Florida, North Carolina, Tennessee, or Pennsylvania, you're going to look at what is the cost of business in each of those states. And when we rank second to last, we're going to fall down that list. So in a bipartisan manner, last year we were able to work together with a Democratic governor, a Republican-led legislature to reduce that, cut it in half, and go from 49th to what would be
Except
the
in the House
lowest.
of Representatives, it now has 102 Democrats to 100.
So this was last year, in 22. This year, I think there is broad-based agreement. That's the nice thing. The issues that make us more competitive around the topics of it, tax reform, permanent reform, workforce, there's agreement that we need to take action on these areas. How quickly we do it, how we do it, that's going to be worked out. But there is broad-based agreement that we need to lower that tax
All right,
base.
well, I want to run to a break. When we come back, I want to talk about a workforce development agenda. I mean, obviously, we need a workforce that has to be trained in certain areas of the economy.
That's right.
It involves education. It involves vocational activities as well. We'll get to that after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Medical Society. Inspired physicians committed to the good health of Pennsylvanians and the advancement of the practice of medicine.
My guest is Luke Bernstein. He's the president and CEO of the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry. We're talking about areas of the economy, how to improve them. One of the areas is obviously workforce development. We have shortages. You go around any town, and what do you see? Help wanted, help wanted, help wanted, help wanted. What's the problem?
Yeah, we currently have in Pennsylvania, we have a worker shortage. And so we currently have 74 individuals looking for work for 100 available jobs. So clearly that's a significant gap. The workforce challenge, it needs to be addressed there's no silver bullet solution to solving this problem. There are a number of different things, issues like childcare, issues like getting new people and training, education. There are a number of areas that we've looked at to increase that population, but one of them, traditionally, has been working on criminal justice reform, helping people re-enter into the workforce and incentivizing through different probation
That's a little complicated to do, isn't it?
It is, but it's really important.
Yeah.
And when you're in a situation where the economy does not have enough workers to fill the jobs available, we have to look everywhere for available talent. So we were supporters of the Clean Slate legislation. We helped champion that in 2018. That legislation helped 1.2.
Clean Slate, explain that.
Clean Slate legislation went through. What it did was it sealed the records. If you had one criminal offense within the last 10 years, it would seal that. So when you'd apply for a job or housing, it would be sealed. Now, it wasn't major level offenses. And if you had a second one, it still showed. What it did was it gave a second chance to people who really needed it. So everyone makes a mistake. If you made one mistake, it's sealed. And now what it has done is it allowed more people to go back into the workforce.
So it's working.
It is working. And so we're working on Clean Slate, actually 3.0, which passed the House with 189 votes out of 203 members, so largely bipartisan. And what this does, it allows, if it is a drug offense, it now not trafficking or not dealing, but that would seal again after 10 years. That wasn't in the original legislation. Also, probation reform. So we can
now
incentivize.
That's in the Senate. The legislation is in the Senate.
It's in the Senate, yes. It went through committee this week. That legislation went through the committee, so now it can be voted on by the full Senate. But these are areas where we can work to get re-enter people. The recidivism rate in America, so if you come out of prison, the chance you're going back is almost 70% in America and in Pennsylvania. This gives people an opportunity to get into the workforce and really change and better their lives. So really important, and in a time where we need to look at the workforce and get every available person working, it's a great opportunity to get people back and engaged in the workforce.
Yeah. One of the areas of the economy that we don't hear much about at all has to do with permits. So what's a permit and why is it relevant?
So it's a great question. For most people, it doesn't sound sexy, right? The issue of permitting, it is hugely important. So if you want to do anything, there are 2,500 different types of permits or licenses issued by the Pennsylvania state government. So if you're going to start any type of construction project, you need to go get a permit. Our system in Pennsylvania is outdated and it's antiquated.
And you didn't say complicated, but I think you would mean complicated.
Yeah, it's complicated. If you want to order a pizza from Domino's, you can order it on your app. You can see when it's ordered. It can come for a $15 pizza. In Pennsylvania, if you apply for a $15 million permit, you can't track it. You don't know where it goes. So what we've been doing is we've been talking about permit reform. We've been working with the governor, Governor Shapiro. Just 1 week in office, announced a full one-stop shop and review of all these permits. We've been working with DEP. How can we be more competitive without changing any of the environmental regulations?
One-stop shop mean? You just have to go to one place to get the permit?
One place, so it can shepherd you through all the different steps of DEP, of PennDOT, all the different areas. So a great example for you is recently in central Pennsylvania, there was a company that started a housing project for affordable housing, 120 units. It was one in central Pennsylvania, a sister one of the exact same project in Wilmington, Delaware. In central Pennsylvania, they're still in the construction phase. They've moved in Wilmington, Delaware. The mayor this summer cut the ribbon. That's not acceptable. We don't have to change any of the environmental regulations, but we can streamline the process, be more efficient, which would get people back to work faster. It would get projects moving and would really jolt our economy.
You know, you sound optimistic that many of these things can get accomplished.
I do, because there's broad bipartisan support for all of these initiatives. Who doesn't want a stronger economy? Who doesn't want an engaged workforce, and who doesn't want projects moving faster? I think we all agree on those areas, so I'm very optimistic. If we can change those things, Pennsylvania can get back to being the economic powerhouse we were and stop losing congressional seats and actually gain a congressional seat.
Look, we have a very complicated geography. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And I do want to thank you for coming on. This has been very helpful, I think, in understanding. All right, we're preempted next week, but the week after, we'll see you for another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers. And as always, thanks for joining us. And you can jump in.